the way I make it, mate. It's special.
There's something special about the way you make tea special.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's the incantations. I have my own incantations that I do.
Right, and that gives the tea power.
Whoa, you wouldn't believe it. You might see me lift off this chair in a moment because it's sort of.
I hope I don't. I hope you stay seated right where you are, where I can see you.
But that might be flatulence. I'm not sure. Carry on.
That's the really special tea. So I've got a couple of questions from people who've sent questions in. Right. But one of the ones that comes up a lot is managing contact when co-parenting with a narcissist. Now, I think you've done a couple of 100 hours worth of coaching with people on this type of thing. Has this come up a lot? Is this the kind of thing people have been asking you about?
It does come up. It's quite frequent. It's not all the time. It depends, but there are people who are looking to move forward from an abusive relationship, whether it's been a marriage or a partnership and there's children involved. So in those cases, then yes, the no contact rule has to be modified and dealt with, because there's got to be contact regarding what's happening with the children. And even after when maybe the divorce is all finalized and there's access and they have to go and collect them from a ex-spouse's house and things like that. So yes, it's a regular enough event that people have to find a way of dealing with. Yeah. So
when clients are coming to you, presumably it's in a state of exasperation on that subject, like, what do I do trying to communicate with this person? What direction do you usually guide them in as far as that goes?
So keeping to the structure of the program initially, of course, we talk about no contact.
Yeah.
And we talk about techniques like grey rock to minimize the amount of emotional engagement, because that's often the thing, isn't it? There's two streams running here. One is the practical, logistical, dealing with courts, collecting children. There's that, and then there's the emotional baggage, if you like, that gets carried alongside that as well. And that you've got to neutralize that. You've got to realize it's that radical acceptance thing, isn't it? This thing has happened. This process of dealing with finances as well as children has to go on for some period of time. So a lot of the times I'm talking to them, I'm using grey rock and no contact, modified to suit their circumstances. And a lot of it is about just extracting the emotional content from that, so they don't, go into a flashback, go into some sort of anxiety. And then the other thing, of course, is other tools. Again, talking about the core program, the way the package comes out, the circuit breakers and tools like this, when if a person knows that in a very short period of time they're going to have to deal with the ex or the abusive partner or whoever, and that starts to build some anxiety in them before it's even happened, or then after it's happened. So we've got the tools, haven't we? We've got our first aid kits. We've got some circuit breaker tools they can use to ground and calm themselves and center themselves. Again, emotional regulation.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things within the program that do work. We just got to modify them to suit the individual circumstances.
I mean, it's a pretty awful situation to be in as far as like narcissistic abuse goes, isn't it? Because they're guaranteed not just contact, but they're guaranteed that they have a point of leverage within that contact, which is usually it's kids, isn't it? Like they can withhold access to the kids, they can drop the kids off an hour and a half later than they said they would to disrupt your plans. There's all kinds of little games that they can play within that then, isn't there?
Yeah, and I have had examples of that as well. That's really tough.
Yeah.
Had examples of exactly that where, the worst one was just confidentiality check. Nobody will be able to tell from what I'm going to say. But the worst one was where there'd been a split and they were now living in different countries. So the access was via video conferencing, Skype and such. And what was happening was, of course, the camera wasn't working, so we couldn't complete the call, or there's always lots of little things creeping in. And you know what? That actual particular situation, it's a real situation, did drastically improve once, again, not without, long story cut very short, once we worked with the client on keeping the emotion out of it, because the client would get a little bit upset knowing that it was a bit of bullshit and they were just being denied that access. That upset turned into some sort of flame war email, and so it just made the whole situation worse. And in fact, could even think the narcissist was getting exactly what they wanted. They were pushing the buttons by denying access. So, but actually, what the point I should conclude on there is there was considerable progress on that. Once we were able to remove the emotion, don't fly off the handle, just accept it, deal with it as an emotionless thing, then it improved considerably. Another interesting, I guess, example of that was adults, grown up, like people in their 50s and 60s, but there's still children involved.
Yeah.
And it's about then little things going on, thoughts about, are the children taking sides? Are they being used as ways of delivering message? And when I say children, I'm talking about adults in the 30s and 40s now, but it's a family unit.
Yeah.
So you still get that little bit of thing going. So the no contact is the, I treat that as the tough love starting point.
Yeah.
And then we ease off a little bit and compromise through necessity. If somebody says, well, I've got to speak to them every day because of contact, we'll say, well, is that really true? Does it have to be every day? Well, we find, but I still think we keep it as tough as possible. We keep the no contact as tough as possible, and the grey rock technique as well. Go on.
I got a question there. You just reminded me of something. Every single case that I've ever dealt with that was like that, the client would always start from, I have to speak to them every day. I have to answer texts at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I would end up saying the exact same thing that you did, which is, do you? Like, do you really? Which is, it's interesting. I've never actually thought about it before until you just said it. And I'm like, I wonder, why is that happening? Why is the client get into that mindset? Or whenever they call, whenever they text, I have to answer. It's like a boundaryless giving almost, isn't it?
It is indeed. Yeah, absolutely. And that does come through. People are at different parts of the journey, aren't they? And everybody's unique. So, but you do get that. I have to. There are pretty practical reasons why I have to. Do you have to? And of course, the grey rock, if people will probably watching this will know a little bit about the grey rock, is, I can suggest using that to people as a psychological no contact. So we talk about physical no contact, stay away from them.
Yeah.
Social media no contact, don't stalk them. Text no contact, don't reply to the text. Or psychological, stop thinking about them. That time you're spending thinking about them, what could you think about in your future? Because you actually can't hold those two thoughts at once in your head. So, but it is the psychological no contact you've got to break as well. And understanding that some people have been a long time in relationships. You and I know of somebody who's been tens of years in a relationship, and even if there was no abuse going on in that relationship, the aftermath of a split from somebody you've been living with for many years, it's going to take a while, isn't it? It's woven into the fabric of your thinking every day and all the rest of it. So I totally understand and why people say I've got to be in touch every day. But I think part of our job is exactly what you just said, is to try and see if they really do, and if they're really committed to moving forward, because that means letting go.
So in the case you were referencing before, I know he's only just come out of cycle with us, and I actually haven't caught up with him yet. I haven't had a chance to catch up with him yet. That's the case of a man who is being denied access to his child. Do you think that there's almost like for men and for women, like a genetic biological component where if you mess with access to kids, you start to lose your mind? Like, you become hyperadrenalized, you go into a fight mode, and it's almost like a protective thing. There seems to be, it's very like a very primal response.
I do think so. I mean, you could. So let's use that little case as our reference. The guy did feel so protective, and you know, it was his first child,
right? And
there's a whole set of emotions and chemicals and things that come to equip you to look after. You know, we've all said, oh, there was a time in my life when kids were growing up, I had all these responsibilities. Yes, you did. We all did. Or you haven't yet, you know. And so I actually felt that when I was talking to that guy. He just felt, and again, from I think some of his cultural background, which was very family orientated, he felt that he was being denied not just access, but the ability to protect and nurture and provide for. And there again, there was things like he would send presents for the birthday and they'd be sent back. I mean, that's crappy, isn't it? You know, and that was like very sad, very emotionally upsetting. But he's the father trying to provide in some way, and it's being denied in that as well. So, yeah, I think you're right. There are those cultural things come into that as well. Sociological things come into it. That family nurturing comes into it. So it's tough.
I mean, it's not hard to see, and I'm not justifying it, but it's not hard to see how men and women who are trapped in that position by somebody who's winding them up, provoking them, using their kids, you can very easily see how you'd only be 2 or 3 steps from doing something that would land you in jail. You know, it's a violent reaction that your body kicks back if you're in that situation. So I wonder how many people have actually had their lives completely destroyed by somebody just poking them on that one subject, not their job, not their sexual performance or their finances or the usual barbs that get thrown post relationship breakup, but the kids and access to the kids. That's really nasty. That's really underhand. But in this particular example, through working with you and you just turning down or helping him to turn down the emotional response, what you're saying is it actually improved the external communication system. They actually managed to figure something out.
Yeah, exactly that. You know, exactly
right.
That. I mean, there were times when the responses, push the button with the, just 1 second. I'm getting to get echo back.
Say that again, mate.
I've just started getting echo back.
Oh, it'll do this to you sometimes. Let me turn down my volume.
Okay.
If it keeps doing it, I have headphones I can plug in.
Okay.
Is that better?
That's okay. That's better. It just came, so it wasn't there before. Yeah, so it's that emotional thing. You know, obviously it was over a period of weeks. So what I'm going to say now wasn't just boom and it happened, but we started looking at what was really important to him. What was really important to him, and what was really important to him was the contact. But he was getting caught up in, she's playing games with me, she's doing it on purpose, you know, and ego things started coming in and all the rest of it. So he would reply to a text at 3 o'clock in the morning and those sorts of things, and not only that, but reply confrontationally.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things I brought in on that, and I do sometimes bring in, I know it's not in the program, but you'll be familiar with this thing about a verbal judo. So if you think of you know, a fight face to face, karate or boxing is confrontational. You throw a punch, I throw a punch, you throw a punch, I throw a punch. Whereas verbal judo is you throw a punch, I just step aside and let that punch go past and step out of the way. I don't stand there and trade responses with you.
Yeah.
So because I get it, you know, I can quite understand how it seemed important. It seemed to be important that he could not let this go on. He could not let that behavior. But, you know, really at the core, what's really the most important thing that was obviously the access. So he modified his emotional response. In fact, he modified his emotional response and just, you know, took the emotion out of those responses, concentrated solely on it being about access over Skype to his child, and it seemed to work a lot better, even to the point of saying nice little things. You know, he just when he saw the child, maybe saying things like, "Looks like you're doing a great job with him," rather than, you know, some sort of insult.
Yeah. Things that we can both think of that we shouldn't repeat here. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And I've got a big sticker on here. Don't swear. It says.
I need one of them. I definitely need one of them. It's interesting because I've seen that with clients where they can get stuck in a state of righteous indignation, and
that's it.
And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. They're like, this isn't fair. And I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter. You're dancing with the devil now.
I'm taking my sticker down. Yes. Yeah, it is that. Righteous indignation. And then you say, well, yeah, exactly. Just but what's the most important thing here?
Yeah.
And it is about, it brings the whole temperature down anyway as well. Yeah. But if you expose all the buttons, say press, they're going to press.
Yeah, exactly. You're
giving another 3 o'clock in the morning wake up call for you.
Exactly. You're giving them the data. You're giving them the strategy. You're saying, these are my weak spots. Please attack me here, here, and here for maximum effect. To continue the martial arts analogy, I remember when I was a kid, like moving through some of the different Japanese martial arts and then switching over to ninjutsu, but particularly liking the philosophy, which was, of course you can do a battle with honor for the sake of your name, for the sake of your house and your lord, which is what a samurai should do. Come with flag flying, colors by daylight, or you can poison the fucker at night and just get the job done. And there was, I always thought, I'm not suggesting that people wear black ninja suits and poison their exes at night, but there is something to, hey, you got to do what you got to do. If your kids are involved, why not? I'm joking. Please don't call the police on me. But there is something to that next level strategy where you just go, okay, you're not playing honorably. You're not going to be honorable with me. So why should I be honorable with you? Why should I keep coming back to the battlefield announcing I am such and such from such and such a prefecture and I shall fight you here at this time with, no, fuck that. You're not doing that. So I'll just sneak in and slit your throat in your sleep. It seems to be something that people who are decent human beings and also people who are codependently trained, it doesn't occur to them. And when you suggest it, it's like morally repellent to think in a Machiavellian, sneaky way. But you have to kind of say to them, look, like you said, do you want access to your kid? This is the game we got to play.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And it is, though. So going right back to the first bit we started on this, it's still a no contact rule. But that no contact, okay, there's got to be a physical contact for courts or something. But there doesn't have to be a psychological and an emotional contact. We can diminish that.
Yeah.
That was all those responses that go with it. Yeah. And it's, again, because people who join us on the program are working through a trauma, but they've still got the trauma, but that's why they're here, they're working through. The trauma can blind them to what they are really doing.
Right.
You can sort of see them going, oh, bloody hell, yes, I am doing that, aren't I? I am allowing them to push my buttons. And you and I might say, we can see that. But if you're in the trauma, it's a maelstrom of thoughts and emotions and all these things, isn't it? So you perhaps don't see as clearly. So I think that's one of the things the program can help them do, is to see clearly. Is to, wipe the glasses a bit cleaner and put them back on and say, oh, right, yeah, now I see. Yeah. Like
without that greasy thumbprint. It's a recurrent theme at the moment. A couple of clients that I've been doing the email coaching with, now that they've done, most of them are like 3 or 4 weeks in with yourself and with Terry, they're coming back to me and they're going, oh, I can think more clearly now. And they're going, is this normal? And I'm like, yes, this is what emotional regulation and emotional literacy gives you. Because as you just said, I like the use of the word maelstrom. People don't use that word enough. The emotional,
we would make it mandatory on the course to use maelstrom at least once every session. Yeah,
I think so. I think that there should be mandatory difficult language usage just to keep it as pretentious as possible. Oh, Stephen, I'm in such a maelstrom of emotion. Because I think maelstrom, I think it's a Nordic word, and I think it literally translates to swirling pool, which is exactly what it feels like. It has its own gravity, and you're sucked in, and you're spinning, and you become the emotion. It sounds like Buddhism or something. Like you're so identified in that moment, you've become rage. You've become righteous indignation itself.
Okay. Absolutely. No, that is it. Although yeah, that's, I get that completely. So another aspect of of the program that helps in there is the emotional literacy,
Yeah.
and knowing that you don't have to become your emotion. Yeah,
Yeah.
knowing that. Did I tell you about a YouTube clip I watched a little? Oh, you know when you say a little while ago, and you think it was actually last year. It was an interview, some psychiatrist or psychologist being interviewed in the States. Anyway, the punchline for me, the thing that really resonated was, he said, they estimate that 80% of males imprisoned in the States can trace that situation to some emotional dysregulation. And so you start, well, what's all that? And this is, and then he went on to say, like anger, jealousy, rage. Oh yeah, of course. Of course,
Yeah.
you can see somebody gets jealous, gets angry, flies into a rage, maybe assaults somebody, ends up in prison.
Yeah.
I can see that. That's a storyline. It's an emotion that got them there. So if 80% of, if that's true, and he said they think about 80% of males in prison, imagine if the population were educated in emotional control, and that might only be 40%.
Yeah.
That's a significant impact on society, isn't it?
It
But
is,
it's
yeah, and it would lose a lot of the people who are controlling the prison complexes an awful lot of money, of course.
oh, you cynic! Oh, you cynic!
But let's not get into conspiracy theory. No, I think it's a really, really valid point. And the thing with the emotional literacy, it's like it's one of the most powerful things in the course. But there is always that resistance, isn't there, when you sort of say to people, "Look, there's a really powerful exercise," and they go, "What is it?" It's like, well, you write your emotions down, and that you can see it on their face. They're like, "I'm not fucking doing that. I don't want to do that." It's quite hard to get people into it, isn't it?
It is all of what you said there. I've got experience of. Yeah, it can be either hard, or they think, well, that's not going to. It's too simple.
Yeah.
And yet, as the course progresses, the number of people who say how much they keep returning to the emotional literacy.
Yeah.
And I like it sometimes, and I actually do encourage this, where if it comes up again, we get them to do the drill, sit down, pen and paper, do the drill, work it through. And then after a while, you don't need the pen and paper. I've had them come back and say, I was just driving into the city the other day and I felt in a certain way, and I thought, wow, I'm just driving. I did the emotional literacy exercise while I was driving and just changed the state I was in. And I love that. I think that's really, now it's you now. It's your lifestyle. It's how you run your life. It's not a first aid patch that you can go to if you need to. And so the emotional literacy is, you said it, it's a very simple concept, but powerful in application. Fantastic little thing.
Somebody who's got to that point where they can think, oh, I'm feeling a certain way. What's the emotion telling me? Oh, it's this. Oh, okay, maybe I should change this. And then just avoid a whole set of karmic nonsense reality tunnel before they even get to the city they're driving to. That person is emotionally literate. They have gone from being illiterate to literate, and they're in communication with themselves. And that is a fucking beautiful thing.
It is good. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. And again, in that process, it starts with the noticing. It starts with the noticing. We've given them a tool that helps them, first of all, notice an emotion. How many times? I mean, even now, there are times when you think, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm thinking, why am I so annoyed at something?
Yeah.
Stop feeling annoyed. It was nothing. What's the opposite of annoyed? Oh, you know what? Calm and relaxed. Like, go for calm. And I'll do the same. I think it would be a very strange individual that could control the emotions so they never even engage him at all, or her.
Yeah.
We're all going to feel happy, sad, joy, anger. It's noticing them and dealing with them, and instead of letting them flood you. Again, you go back to that comment, that phrase you used of righteous indignation. You take something like jealousy, rage, anger, or something, and if you don't take control, it will build up into like a righteous indignation, and then it becomes right. It's the right thing to do. I have got to go and burn the house down because it's the right thing to do. It
Yeah.
never was. Never was.
Yeah, that's interesting actually. I think that emotional state of righteous indignation, it's useful, and it probably served like an evolutionary purpose. Like, you know, somebody's coming to attack your tribe and you're terrified because you don't want to die because these attackers will kill, but something kicks in, you go, no, I won't let them take the village. I'm going to fucking grab a spear and run at them, even though that will kill me. That's probably where righteous indignation comes from. But it's it's necessary for it to be quite stiff, thoughtless, and action focused. And we don't want that.
That's right. So you could, we've never explored this, have we? So let's probably do it now. It's probably part of the trauma response, isn't it? The fight part, fight, flight, blah. It's which has a physical component as well. We talk about it as the emotional response, the emotional trauma response, but it exists in the physical world. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn in the physical world as well.
Absolutely,
so
it does.
A fight, isn't it? It's like I've got to fight, and so evolutionary, the brain knows. Well, if you're going to do it, I better just give you superpowers.
Yeah.
You've got to have these superpowers. We'll call it righteous indignation, and you'll be invincible, and you'll be, boom. But it's going to stop you. Unless you do need to fight for your life. Then if you need to fight for your life, it's necessary.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It could be completely appropriate. You know, you hear survivor stories, don't you? I mean, you as a Krav Maga instructor, me doing the self-defense back in the day, you'll have read the stories of, there was a woman in America. She was attacked. The guy broke into her house. She was letting him rob the ground floor, and then he started to move upstairs, but the kids were sleeping. And he was like, I'm going upstairs. And she was like, you're not. You can take anything from down here, but you're not going up there. And he was like, I've got a gun. And she went, fuck your gun. And he went, all right, I'm going to shoot you. He shot her twice. She ripped his testicles off.
Oh,
after she was shot twice with a 38 in the torso, she survived. She pulled his ball bag off.
Oh, that's not fair.
That's not fair. That's not the same.
No, you don't bring that to a gunfight.
Yeah, two wrongs don't make a right, you know. But I was, that level of it could be the very thing that feeds into the kamikaze impulse, the berserker impulse, and maybe that's what gets people in jail, is a switch that is not appropriate to modern civilization at all, but that was, like you just said, the mode of invincibility that you have for the 30 seconds before the enemy kills you. Like, you'll kill a lot of them and you'll be useful in the battle for 30 to 45 seconds, then you'll be hacked to death. And that's all it's for, but we're bringing it to the modern world, and it will land you in jail.
That's exactly, that's it. We are bringing it to the modern world where it's not, where the threat is emotional rather than physical in the situation we're talking about. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so, you've got to step out of it. You've got to step out of it. Again, it's exactly the case study we were talking about. Step out of it and say, right, in this maelstrom, that's twice now.
I love it.
What's important to me?
Yeah.
In a calm, calculating, strategic way, what's important?
Yeah.
And leave all the other ego rubbish around the edges. Don't even get involved in that.
Yeah. And that's probably a similar strategy to the one that's being laid down by the enemy in this context. Your narcissistic personality, Sam Vaknin calls himself a human scanner. He says that when I meet people, I'm scanning them for weaknesses. He's looking very cold-bloodedly at where he can flatter, where he can cajole, where he can manipulate, where he can threaten, where he can insult, where he could induce a blind rage that would make the other person look insane. He's scanning.
Yeah, and then you've got them. Yeah.
And maybe that's what we need a little bit of, is a bit of understanding of a cold-blooded strategy to go, okay, you're playing a game. You're not being sincere with me. So me bringing my sincere, righteous indignation, how dare you not let me see my children, is meaningless. I have to be just as clever as you are.
You do. Well, yeah, and not play their game, not play back. Play a game that's sort of, I don't know, I'm losing the metaphor a bit, but don't play by their rules, but play by rules that maybe engage them enough, because there is a core outcome here. You do want to see your children, or you do want to have an equitable deal on the divorce, so you do want something in there. So you don't want to just sort of, you've got to have that where we started. You've got to have some degree of contact.
And that's really good coaching advice, isn't it? To just say, well, start with the end in mind. What is it you're really trying to get done here? You want to win an ego battle so that you feel good for a minute, or are you actually trying to, whatever it is, whatever the core objective is? Absolutely.
And when you're talking through that, you do, usually you've got a good bit of rapport with the client, and I'll just say, it's a known fact, this is made up, it's a known fact that while you're trying to deal with this, your inner critic will use a little mantra, and the little mantra will be, yes, but. I say, yes, but. So as you're trying to deal with this, and I'm talking to you and you're answering me, I bet you're hearing every now and again in your head, yes, but. That's the inner critic.
Yeah.
So don't let them, because you're arguing with yourself but eventually you've got to arrive at that place of, what is the outcome that's important to me?
Yeah.
And there's the other thing is, the practical things like access to children, if that's what's going on, equitable resolution of a divorce, if that's what's going on, peace of mind, and not being under the control of the narcissist. That's an outcome which is primary in all of this as well. So if you're responding to those, any sort of button being pushed, that's contact.
And you've just answered something there that I was going to go on to ask you. You just said, having sanity and peace and diminished contact with the narcissist. One of the things that I'm asked frequently is, how do we move on with our lives? How do we get on and move on to the next phase? So there seems to be some relationship between managing the emotional content, getting back to a more regulated, sane, calm space. Do you think that's key to letting people get on with a better life?
It's critical, isn't it, really? It's critical. I have every respect for the clients who come on. It's not always easy. That's why they're here. But again, I'm sure I've said this with you, talking to you before. My metaphor, if you like, or analogy, if that's the better word, is to say, when clients are talking to us, I have this little thing in my head. They've already taken the bridge hands and walked into the room, and they've walked 7/8 of the way across the room. That's taken a lot of courage and determination, and they find the program, and the program is helping them close that last gap, and that includes moving forward. It is about, I think sometimes when people come on the program, they very much see it as a healing exercise. How do I heal? How do I get away from the situation if that's necessary? How do I heal myself and become grounded? But as you know, the program is also about giving that motivation and propulsion to move to a better life as well. Healing is just ground zero. Healing's back to where you should have been anyway. But in the program, and keep going. Absolutely, yeah. So
that's a really good point. That the healing that they get, we're not really giving them something, even though it might feel like that. What we're doing is taking away a burden. Like you said, you're back to zero. This is how you should be. This is how normal humans feel on a daily basis, is just okay. There's not being tortured by their own feelings.
Yeah, that works for me. That it is about, it's not healing as in putting creams and potions and things on, and it's about taking the crap out the way. Allowing them to see more options in the future. Spend the time thinking about the options and the future, because you can't do that and be thinking about the crap in the past as well. Although that's really tempting, isn't it? It's really tempting to watch that really horrible video over and over and over and over again and blame yourself and feel, it's like, you know what? Just stop it.
The point is, you just stop that. We don't want you doing that. Stop it.
Yeah, that's it. You say tonight, okay, I've got something here. You got a pen and paper? Yeah, okay. Very important. Just write this down. Okay, go. Just write down these 2 words. Stop it. What? Just stop it.
Then tape that to your forehead. Stop it. It is. We've discussed this a few times, haven't we? The fact that the brain, the human system, does have a tendency to map pain and to focus on danger, and that because it's things that have already happened. It's not deliberate. By virtue of the fact it's pain that's already happened, you end up just becoming past focused. You end up just staring at in your rear view mirror all the time, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. It did happen. You have memories, whether they're true or false or whatever, but you've got a collection of things that you can just look at and say, all that happened. And then you can, as well, memories are fallible. You embellish it, you enhance it, you color it all in. It's like, you're looking in the rear view mirror, picking up the expression you said there. And I get it. It's necessary. We all want to figure out maybe how things happen. But once you've got to a level of understanding, does it help to go any deeper? I would say no, it doesn't. Once you get to a level of understanding, you know what the type of abuse was, it wasn't your fault, you were dealing with an expert manipulator. So let's not do that again. What would be better? What would you rather have? What's the future look like? How are you going to be in the future? And that conversation pushes out. And then it takes discipline. And I get, all the clients who've come through started to develop that discipline about spending time designing their future rather than crying over the past.
Yeah.
It happened. It happened. Let's learn things. Let's move on.
And it's almost like a different set of muscles, isn't it? That's required to get into being future focused. If you've never done it before and we tell you to do it and you've got really atrophied muscles for that, it'll be like, oh, this feels weird and awkward. But the more you do it, the more you'll get into it. It's like, oh, I actually have a future. I have some sovereignty. I have some agency. I can make a change. Speaking of the future, if somebody were to say to you, how do I get into a healthy relationship? Presumably they've been in a bad romantic relationship. How do they get into a healthy relationship in the future? Where would you start answering that with one of your clients?
Okay. So it is as you know, you put it there, there's a part of the program where we do talk about, and not only, we talk about, there's video and there's exercise. So there's a little cluster of things to get the thoughts around defining normal love. Yeah, that's that actual part of the program, which we come to. I think it's around session 5, isn't it? Where that's about moving forward then. From 4, 5, and 6, it's about really focusing on moving forward. What do you need to do now to get into a better place? So we do take them through the exercise and the videos of defining normal love, defining the boundaries. I'm always a little bit careful. I know, I'm pretty sure one of the audios on the program, you talk about this. That word boundaries, we've got to be careful with that, because in ordinary everyday language, I think boundaries sounds like walls, fences, obstacles. Yeah. Which we mean that. We're not putting up walls to stop people getting in. Yeah. We're just deciding where the edges of us and them, sort of where we meet, where we come together like a jigsaw a bit better. So we spend the time working on that with them. And I think a lot of it is just about how to control those boundaries, how to be, a little bit more assertive around them. Yeah. What was the real gist of the question here about how do they get back into a relationship?
Getting into a relationship that would be decent, that would be fulfilling in the future, which is like what you're saying. Like, you've got to define love, you've got to define your boundaries, and then you need to feel confident asserting them without over asserting them. That's not a good look in a romantic scenario.
I know. And you know what comes up to my thoughts here, and you and I have spoken about this before, it's not a part of the program, but it's certainly something that we can get conversations going around. And it's that triangle thing of intimacy, vulnerability, and safety, isn't it? I have it like a triangle. Yeah. Each side, one side's got vulnerability, the other's got intimacy, and one's got safety. And the imagery I would have is that has to be an equilateral triangle, pretty much all 3 sides the same, for healthy relationships going forward. Yeah, and but the thing, of course, a lot of people, with it being a bit damaged, but through a relationship, then the safety line gets really long. I'm going to be really safe in my life. The vulnerability line gets really short. I'm not going to be vulnerable again. So the intimacy is like gone. It's just a flat line now. So
that big. It's just that big.
Absolutely. So a conversation around there that says how do we try and build that triangle back? Safety is important, but vulnerability is important, and is if you're not somewhat vulnerable, the relationship probably won't be intimate because you'll be holding people off at arm's length, won't you?
Exactly. So you can't have intimacy without vulnerability. It just doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
I know that Terry's coming on in a minute. I'm just going to go and grab some headphones. So if I move, I think what I did before is I moved the mic too close. So when Terry comes on, I want to make sure that I'm fully set up because, well, you know what he's like, Steve.
Yeah, no. Are you ready for this? Because it's a bit early morning for him as well.
I don't think anybody's ready for it, but he's coming. So we're just going to have to do the best we can. One sec.
Am I staying here? Yeah.
Yeah, you just stay there. You can sing a song. You can tell jokes if you want.
I didn't prepare any, I'm afraid. I've just come on, just ad-libbing.
Just ad-libbing now. Just freestyling. I'm going to try and shove this the headphones into the mic, which I've not done before. I've got people are sending me through questions live now. So guys who are tuned in, guys and girls who are tuned in, I've got your questions on Tumblr. And what I'm going to do is when Terry comes on, I'm going to post them. I'm not going to post them. I'm going to speak them. Cyber language has gotten into my brain now. I'm going to say the words. I'm going to ask them of Terence and Stephen, our coaches here, and then we'll see where we go with that. You said before about when you were thinking of something you saw on social media, something you saw on YouTube, and you said it was the other day, and then you went, "Oh, I think it was a year ago."
Oh, that's funny, isn't it?
There's something about watching stuff online that is completely timeless. I have the same thing all the time where I'm like, yeah, the other day when so-and-so said so-and-so, and I'm like, that's literally 5 years ago. It's actually 2012 that conversation happened. I'm like, fuck, it feels just right there. It's just an NLP, internal representation language.
I mean, do you think that is because it can be just there? I mean, there was a time when you could say that program that was on the telly 10 years ago, because you knew it was only on the telly 10 years ago. Now it's on YouTube or something anytime you want it.
Yeah, you can get access to whatever you want, whenever you want, which I think is a factor. But I also saw a meme.
Draw some eyes on your elbow because you've got your elbow. Draw 2 eyes on your elbow. I could talk to you.
Look at the style. I've been doing so much Muay Thai. My poor elbows are killing me, Steve.
Yeah.
Did I tell you? I went to my first Muay Thai class, and I said to them, "I'm not really fit enough for this, so I can only do an hour." And the teacher went, "Oh yes, 1 hour, no problem." And an hour was up, and I walked over to the instructor and I said, "Cotton cap, thank you. It was wonderful. I need to go." And he was like, "Where you go?" I said, "Well, I've done my hour." And you go, "No, you go. You in ring. And I was like, no. Me, very old man already, very old. He's like, no, look him. And he pointed to a Muay Thai instructor who looked about 50, took me in the ring and smashed the fuck out of me whilst laughing. Go. I was like, okay. So the next time I went, I was like, I won't say a word. I'll stick to the end of the class. 2 hours and 20 minutes, mate. 2 hours and 20 minutes. I dragged myself out of there like that. It's like 35 degrees C. They murdered me. Wow. Right, I'm going to turn this down. So there's no feedback now, is there, on the mic?
There was no feedback the last part of the talk as well. So yeah, it's fine.
Okay. And if I leave the mic there, can you hear me? Okay.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, a little bit of feedback.
Oh, is it? What about now? Is it still feedbacking?
Well, I have to say something, and it did feedback to me then. Yes.
Can you hear yourself now? Sorry about this, folks. It's a technical issue. Are you getting feedback now if you say something?
I will say something, and I am getting feedback.
Oh dear. I've made it worse. Tried to fix it, made it worse. What about now?
Let me try again then. Still getting feedback.
Shit. God damn it. This happens with Skype. Sometimes it picks up and then it drops off, and then it picks up and it drops off. You try again.
Okay, let me try now. It's clean now. No feedback now.
Perfect. Okay.
Perfect.
I'll give you a question. Okay. Wowie. Okay, guys, when you're asking questions, if you could make them just one sentence long rather than a small essay, and questions end in a question mark. Okay, so a general question that I've had is, how do I trust people again and make new friends?
2 questions in there.
Well noticed. I didn't pick up on that, but there is.
Well, I mean, each one of them is massive in its own right, isn't it? I mean, how do you trust people again? Take that as the first bit. How do you trust people again? Well, you know, the program is a coaching program. It's not Google.
Yeah.
You got to know where that person's coming from, haven't you? You got to know what trust is like for them. What would trust be going forward? Because again, hey, my version of trust, that label I put on trust, is going to be different from the label other people put on trust. Similar enough that we can get by in society. Similar enough, but you know what it's like. You stop on a word, you stop on an emotion, and trust. Oh, I didn't mean that type of trust. So, I got to answer that question. I'd have to personally ask, what is it? Never mind calling it trust. What is it they're missing? What is it they want?
Yeah.
And you might find they bring other things in. They'll say, well, when I say trust, I mean things like loyalty. You think, oh, okay, I get it. It's a bigger thing then. What is that look? What is that looking like? To answer a question, for me, I would say to answer the question on the basis of one word is a little bit of a mistake, because you might be wrong. The word my dictionary when I looked up trust might be different from the person who put the question on.
I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day, and he got asked the question, "Do you believe in God?" And the interviewer said, "You're always really evasive. You're always so evasive about this question." And he gave a really good answer, which was, "I can't answer that question because I don't know what you mean." And it would take it could fill a book. You telling me what you mean could. So let's not assume a priori that I even know how to answer your question before I begin answering it, because it's so broad, isn't it? We've no idea whether our maps of reality actually line up on that.
This is a key thing on the coaching program that I run. It's one of those things that you've got to make the point, and you've got to make it a few times during the course of training the coaches to say, don't assume you know what the client is thinking, and don't replicate their situation in your head and then start working on your model of it. It's always got to be their model. They will be using words to describe their model. Please don't think you've got exactly the same. And the simple, hey, everybody knows the cat sat on the mat. So, do you get that? Does that make sense to you? The cat sat on the mat? Now I'm asking you a question. Yeah?
Yeah, it does.
So what color is the cat?
My cat is black.
It's not.
What do you mean it's not?
It's not. It's a ginger Tom. The cat sat on the mat. What size, what shape is the mat?
Oblong and brown.
Oh, how wrong can you be? So I've got ginger cat sat on a small white circular mat, and you've got something. And that's
you're a weirdo, though. I mean, who has a ginger cat on a circular mat?
That's why I've come to you for help. I want your cat on your mat.
Well, that maybe there's something to that, maybe there is something to. I actually want your cat on your mat, because if I hold that map of reality that you're holding, it maybe that's all we offer is really ultimately is like we can't really offer solutions per se, because you can't go into somebody else's life and change it. And the mode by which we coach people is only through language. You can only offer better maps, can't you?
You can offer better maps. No, that's true. That's what we're doing, is offering better maps, but offering or allowing them to construct better maps.
Yeah.
And all sorts of techniques come in, you know, as you say, language. Wouldn't it be great if we could just, like on the Matrix, plug them into the USB port and download the latest version of clear thinking and emotional regulation, and just download it. But we haven't figured out how to hack the brain in that way yet. So we hack it language, and that language then can be turned into like an audio or a video. At the end of the day, it's just the words that are causing the shape to, you know, the neuroplasticity to do stuff. Yeah. So it's hacking the brain. Or again, as often comes up, the way a lot of your programs use the analogy of software updates.
Yeah.
And it's a you never get a software a software updates from a software supplier is never designed to downgrade. Yeah. Software upgrade is to upgrade.
Yeah.
So in what we're doing, we're getting ways to load the software so that it upgrades their thinking, it upgrades their emotional regulation, you know, and all those sorts of things. So that's the other analogy that I think works well.
Okay.
Just because what you say, there's somebody else there listening.
I think that looks like it's Teddy.
Hi.
Let's see your haircut. Let's see the haircut. Say something, Terry, so your head comes up. Say,
can you hear me?
It's good though. It's good. It's you know, it's slipped a bit over the side there.
You know what? The green-eyed one's the worst one, isn't it?
The green-eyed one.
Are you saying he's jealous of your toupee?
You know what? No one has ever seen a bad wig.
No one has ever seen what?
No one has ever seen a bad wig.
Okay, this is deep. This is deep. We weren't really going this deep on the conversation.
It sounds like a fucking Zen koan. What do you mean nobody's ever seen a bad wig? Do I need to meditate for 10 years to get that? Go on.
Oh, master.
Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Nobody's ever seen a good wig.
Oh, that's a reframe. Nobody's ever
high?
Very high.
Very high. High to you, Terry. So one of the things we were talking about before, Terry, is the with the clients, like you've gone through a couple of 100 hours now of doing this type of work. As the emotional literacy improves and the emotional regulation improves, have you noticed a greater clarity in the capacity to think things through with the clients?
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly, once they learn to think critically, not to just accept their internal dialogue as read, and they start to challenge it, they start to challenge their own thinking. Absolutely, the clear thinking just comes as a natural thing. The clients last night, you know, they say, I just feel so clear. I just feel so, you know. Well, I've said this before. The general comment is so much later. Now, last time as we spoke about this, we were talking about, well, you know, even after the first session, or usually the first or the third. But now it seems to be getting there. You know, it could come in any session. You know what I mean?
Terry, would you say that sometimes when the clients come on, they're suffering from a maelstrom of thoughts swirling around their heads?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's so you say it again?
I was just saying a proper maelstrom of thoughts going around their heads.
Yeah. And once they learn to clarify those thoughts, once they learn to sort of, okay, even for instance, again, to use an example, you know what I'm like for my examples, Steve.
Give us one.
No.
Here we go.
Give us an example.
I was working with a client yesterday night.
I was working with them.
She more or less said the same thing. Yeah, it's all of those things, you know, all of those things, right? And is this how it's going to be for the next 10 minutes, Stephen? Is it? Really?
Remember, the public are watching, Terry. but don't no swearing.
What's that?
Public are watching.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, you're live.
Can we start again?
No, time doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I've tried numerous times to reset time and it doesn't
It's
happen.
in my map. And in my client's map.
I want his map, Steve. I want his map.
They learned that they can. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. There's never too late to change the map.
So what you were talking about the client that you had last night, mate? Go on.
Oh, before Steve interrupted, you mean?
Yeah.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah. We actually mapped it out. The whole maelstrom of thoughts and whatever it was, yeah. And we mapped it out on a sheet of paper, right? But when we looked at it, there were certain things that she was creating anticipatory anxiety about that she didn't need to be. For instance, things does that make sense?
Yeah.
When we actually took it out of the air, if you like, and you'll notice for those of you, we all know we're all familiar with NLP. Yeah. We're talking about submodalities. Right. When you take them out of the air and put them in a line and say, okay, what's the first thing? What's the most urgent? What's the most actionable thing now?
Yeah.
You control right now. Pay attention to that. You take that as far as you can go, and then you go on to the next one. So rather than have them all over the place, mentally put them in a line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Again, yes, I get it. I get what you're saying. I'm just connecting that with this business of clarity, because do you find that a lot of so I think Richard's question was they start thinking clearer, yeah, and I think we both agree. We hear that comment, don't we? We hear that comment once we're into the program. People say, I'm finding my thoughts are a lot clearer, and a lot of the time, I won't use the word maelstrom again, but they say my thoughts are foggy. I'm very confused. I can't think straight, and I guess that's the trauma, isn't it? That's causing that. You're never going to. There's a statement. Yeah, the likelihood that of you getting into a better type of life, moving into a better. You've got to start seeing through the fog. You've got to start letting blowing the fog away, seeing some clarity, getting the chaos and confusion out of the way, getting some clarity, and then people will choose different techniques and tools to move forward. But if the thinking's foggy, you just can't fix things, can you? That's not special to dealing with narcissistic clients either, is it? It's just life. If you're sat there I don't know where to start. I have no idea where to start. You've got to say, right, I've got to start somewhere. I've got to get some clarity, and once you get that clarity, then you've got footholds or finger grips or whatever metaphor you want to use to start.
Simple as that. Just do something.
Yeah.
So with the client that you were working with last night, Terry, was it an emotional literacy map, or you were just mapping out the various elements of their life that were causing them confusion and distress?
Just the various elements of the life. She was coming in. It was this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And here's the thing, and we all know this is quite common. When you've got so much in your mind, the things that she needed to focus on, she couldn't do because she was continually thinking, oh, well, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. Yeah, so, again, it's in essence, sometimes it was simple time, to a degree, it was simple time management and putting them on an order of priority, For instance, there was a particular letter that she was waiting for, or expected. Now, that letter, for instance, even if and when the letter came, it didn't need to be actioned until probably about 6 or 7 months down the line. But that anticipatory anxiety, was causing a problem now. Because when you think about it, anxiety, all the feelings from the past, the future, anticipatory anxiety, it all happens in the now. The nervous system acts as though it's happening now. Yeah. So, and that's where she's having the problem. So when we put it in order, she was able to step back, take a bit of clarity. Interestingly enough, and it may or may not be relevant, one of the major reframes for it was she's working as a self-employed agent for something, for another company, right? And she handed all their control over to that company. And she was saying, well, I can't earn enough money, and I can't, it's this and I've just got no focus. But when we reframed it as Her Name Limited as a company, and she started thinking, okay, this is me. This is my own business. There was another light bulb going on. And that's when it all started.
In another part of my own business, where I work with people who, whatever they just want coaching, usually on a business matter. So I've got a client at the moment who is a really successful businesswoman, has been for many, many years. And when she got in touch, I've done some work with her company in the past, and she got in touch and she said, I wanted to have a chat about me. She said, I've lost my mojo, which is that expression was what she felt how to describe it. So I started working with her. There's no narcissistic content in this at all. It's a purely getting myself back on track. Now, why I'm saying this, you just reminded me, she can't put her thoughts in order right now. She's starting to, and it's hard work. And so what are the top 5 priorities in your business now? It's all about her business, although of course her life comes into it. And she was resisting. I can't tell you that. I can't put the top 5. I can't even think of the top 5. And we got to them in the end by saying, well, get the top 10 then, and then, but you can't put them in order. And it's that confusion. She knows she's got to put them in order and work on them in a priority basis. So I'm just picking up on what you were saying there and reflecting that it's not only people who come onto this program. There's other aspects of life where it just becomes a bit overwhelming. We can't see the wood for the trees. Got to get clarity. And I think that's where coaching is really good to help guide people through that. And again, and on this program as well, it's one of the key things on the program. If you had this, Terry, where a client will come back and say, I'm just thinking differently, my thoughts are better, and they're almost saying, and in fact I've had one woman almost say out loud, do you think that's because of the program? Said, yeah, of course it is, isn't it? You're rewiring your brain. You're building some new real estate in your brain by rewiring it and thinking better and getting control. So your brain's got more stuff to use. Oh yeah, so your thinking capacity grows by default as well.
Also, there's a really interesting point, and I have said this, and clients have said this to me. What they pick up on the course, they can also generalize out into other areas of the life.
That's right.
That's how the brain works.
That's right.
It's almost as though it says, well, this is useful. I wonder what other context, I wonder what other areas it's useful in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not even that explicit. They just find themselves acting and feeling different in certain contexts. And at one time, that make them feel the way they don't want to feel. I'll use the word unpleasant.
Yeah. So no, I totally agree here. That's like a spin-off. If you like, yeah. Richard's pointing and looking serious now. I think he's trying to interrupt with a question, Terry.
Yeah, I've got something intelligent to ask. It might not happen again for a while. So everybody just hold your breath. And viewers now, hold your breath.
There's a piece of position there that our conversation, mine and Steve's conversation, wasn't intelligent.
That's an.
What am I?
These are outrageous allegations. There was no such implication.
That was very Alan Parsons, that.
I refute these allegations made against me now. No, what I was going to ask you, Terry, is
lost the Northern Ireland contingent.
Yes. They're gone. They're like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Okay,
I'm off to buy a curly whirly. I used to work with a girl in Liverpool city centre, and whenever I went to the shop, I'd say, Bev, what do you want from the shop? And she'd go, I'd like a curly whirly. And I'd go, say it again. And she'd go, fuck off, would you give me a curly whirly? To American viewers, a curly whirly is a delicious candy bar that you can't buy anymore. Terry, what you said there was that, like, what you were doing, you felt from a coaching perspective is it's fairly straightforward, it's fairly simple. is the magic there that somebody, you are an ally in a, I don't want to say intimate space, but in a personal space. Say I'm the client and I'm just fucking overwhelmed and I have all these things going on in my life, and you just come along and go, okay, well, what we're going to do, and you just talk me. Is that where the magic is? Is that I'm getting support? Sorry?
Have you been perfecting that impression?
It was spontaneous, and I actually thought it was pretty good.
Are you channeling me?
Okay. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I'll give you an example.
Makes sense.
but so sorry.
We're not taking this seriously. Come on.
No, we're not. Now, why does that work, do you think?
Why does it work?
Because it's simple, right? It seems a bit like, to people listening, they might be like, well, that sounds really, really too simple in some ways.
Well, one of the let me answer it this way. We have a lot of clients who say, "Oh, thank you. You know what? Really, I really appreciate that. It's great." And the thing is, all we do is ask them more useful questions than they ask themselves.
Right.
You know, more incisive questions, so that they can gain clarity, so that they can think about things in a new way, a more resourceful way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Can I add something to that? That's exactly right.
Richard, your eyebrows are meeting in the middle there. Did I answer your question there, or do you want to?
No, you did. I have a follow-up question. Go on, Steve. Sorry.
Well, I just want to join in because we've seen on various emails and testimonials and feedback that we've had, you see that phrase creeping in. It was the good things that happened, and the phrase will be something like, "It was good to talk to somebody who understood me, or somebody who got me." And we do. And sometimes these people they've been, they're struggling in an abusive relationship, just come out of an abusive relationship. It may go back to their childhood and all the rest of those, complications. Be like, who did he talk to that about? They may have somebody they're close enough to talk to them about, but then when it's somebody close to you, they're going to respond by trying to protect you and say, well, listen, don't worry about it or something. When they're talking to us, we are sympathetic, empathetic, we get them, but we're not close enough that we're just going to say it will be okay. We're going to challenge them. We're going to help them to see things in a different way. And I think that phrase, you've seen it on the emails that come through, it was good to talk to somebody who understood me and got me. And we do understand them. We don't understand, like we said earlier on, we don't replicate exactly their model, but we know why they're here. We know there's a lot of people who, they probably think that, like we humans tend to, I'm the only person in the world who's got this problem.
Right. And
of course, we're seeing dozens and coming up to hundreds now of people who've got the problem. Mm-hmm. The residue of the abuse is there. All different, but we do get them. We understand them. We get them. It's somebody they can talk to. They can say things out loud to another human being.
Yeah.
And that in itself tells them, how to deal with the situation a bit better, doesn't it? So
go on, Terry. Because I've got a question for you, Terry, but I could see you've got something to add to that.
Okay.
Will be set.
A couple of points there. When well-meaning relations, well-meaning whatever it might be, when anyone tells you, "Oh, you'll be okay, you'll be fine," what they're actually doing, they're giving advice to themselves because it's coming from their map of the world, from their reality, right? And with a lot of clients, especially in certain types of relationships, they've been made to feel that it's their fault. It's there to blame, and there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And here's the clarity bit. Once they understand, once the light bulb goes on and realize that it's not their fault, relationships aren't like that.
Yeah.
Not meant to be. Not meant to be on a long term. We're not meant to be treated away with in those situations. That's a light bulb moment, and they realize that they're not on their own.
Yep.
Does it
It's a massive help.
make sense?
It does make sense. So is one of the key things then with that is not just that you're there, present, standing by, helping them. I mean, as Steve just said, we're going to be real with them in a way that their friends can't afford to be, because that's not how social relationships work. But they're going to be real with us in a way that they can't afford. They're going to give us the real ugly stuff. They're going to be like, this is how I actually really feel. This is the
Because
real.
you know it's confidential.
Yes.
You know, no one else is going to hear it.
And that's a release for them, isn't it? I think coaching works on many different levels. With everybody does it in a different. I mean, on the receiving end, the client receives it in a different way. So different levels. But I do think one of those levels, which is reasonably consistent with all clients, is being able to say stuff out loud. What the stuff they've been saying in their head, to say it out loud to another human being, and that other human being can respond in a way, you know. And that's, for me, I think it's probably the first time they've been able to do that in a safe environment as well. You know, they get, especially if there's been abusive. Who did they talk to? We started off this, if you go back when we first came on, Richard, talking about the no contact, and where there's a child in the way, you know, child in the way, there's a child involved. You may have to be in contact because of divorce and all the rest of it. Do you remember me saying about, I've had a number of where there's been an adult child, a grown man or woman, a 30 or 40-year-old, who is the go-between. Yeah. And I've had one particular client, just being careful for sanitizing it all, one particular client who said they would not even tell their son some of the things that happened to them in the relationship and how they thought of it, because they didn't want to burden the son, but it was a communication route back to the ex.
Yeah.
So they told me things they'd never told their son, and that was the person they were the closest to on the planet. Right. Because it was safer. They didn't have to work out any complications. I don't know anybody else in their network and all the rest of it. So it's a massive release just to be able to sit down and talk. And that release then fuels the whole healing and the moving forward as well, doesn't it? You know, it's want me to hang around, or what do you want? How do you want to play this?
It's completely up to you, mate. I was going to go for another 15 minutes, and you're welcome to hang around, or you can sod off and make me a bacon sandwich.
It's in the next room.
Steve! And then deliver it to Thailand. It's totally up to you, mate. Totally up to you.
There it is. You got it. Yeah. You should put the sandwich over.
Oh, that's lovely, that. Oh, just the way I like it. Crispy. So, Terry...
I'll hang about. I like listening to Terry talk. I get lots of good stuff off Terry.
Yeah, well, that's why I ask him questions. I can nick his stuff and then present it as my own.
You guys. One of the few interesting points Steve made there.
I like that. Nice.
Terry, that's really good for you, mate, honestly.
Well, you know me, I'm a laugh a month. Whether you like it or not.
We're up to April already.
Yeah, I'm in a deficit. What was it? Oh, yes.
Forgets what he's talking about.
One of the things that I do explain to the clients, when you're talking, when you actually voice what's going on inside your head, it also acts as feedback to yourself. I mean, we've all come across these examples where we've said something, and as we hear ourselves say it, we go, well, actually, no, that's not quite right. This, it does help with them. In fact, there's a whole therapy based around CBT called exposure therapy, which hangs on that very fact. You talk into a microphone, you talk into a dictaphone, and relate the trauma. I do variations of it. Sometimes, it depends. You rejig it the way you need to get the result, and you do it over a series of days, and then you listen back to the first day, and invariably, what we find is, well, okay, there's a change.
Yeah.
Just fine. And that's without that. Also, you need the input of the therapist to ask the relevant questions to challenge them out. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it does.
That's where to think. Sorry, that's where to think. You know, when Pete Walker's 4 processes of grieving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Verbal ventilation. I use you familiar? Yeah. Excuse me.
I'm
an
not,
exercise.
I said yes, but I don't know that one. Go on.
Yeah, right. He's a case, isn't he? You know what? So, quite a useful exercise I've had clients do is write down a piece, a trauma, for instance, part of the trauma or something that's on your mind. Yeah. You start very, very low at first, something very, very sort of, if the scale is 0 to 10 on the anxiety scale, pick something 4, 5, whatever it might be, right? And then write it out. But then over 4 or 5 days, write the same thing out again, and then reread the first one. And invariably, they say, "Yeah, it's a bit different. I feel differently."
Shift. Yeah.
It's very like journaling in a sense. Journaling can be quite powerful.
Yeah.
What can be quite powerful?
But this is more journaling.
You sound like you're saying hurling. Do you mean the Irish sport of hurling?
In a book. What are your thoughts in a book?
Listen, you fucking scousers. Talk. Journaling. Journaling. Is that what you're trying to say? Journaling.
Channeling.
Journaling.
Yeah.
You've got to think for the American audience. Journaling. We're going to write in a journal. Journaling.
Journaling.
So journaling. I mean, in many ways, like what we're doing is pretty straightforward, classic counseling, psychotherapeutic techniques, and there's nothing really wacky or far out that's on the course, is there?
Not really. I think that what the differentiators are the practical application of NLP,
right?
Which not a lot of therapists really do.
Yeah.
For instance, there are things that, well, I know the both of you do. We all apply NLP to the process.
Yeah. So what I wanted to go on, sorry, Terry.
Go on.
What I was going to ask you, and maybe Steve will have a comment on this as well, is you just, when you described talking to your client and bringing their emotional state from overwhelmed to a state of calm through talking to them and mapping out what the issue is and just being calm and gentle and empathic and saying, well, it's not your fault. You're not crazy that you feel overwhelmed. You're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you, that you feel this way. It's not your fault. Let's talk about it. Let's bring it down and let's just work through it together. Somebody on one of the questions said, how do I overcome self-isolation? And it made me sort of make this link. Well, self-isolation is usually as a result of trauma because we think of people as being dangerous. And maybe one of the things that we can offer with coaching is a relationship with a person that isn't dangerous. Like, it's quite nice. I wish I'd spoken to you yesterday, Terry. I could have fucking done with that. Sitting down with somebody when I'm feeling stressed out and just going, okay, calm down. What is it? Like, and you're doing that for an hour, which is, it's a good piece of time, isn't it? I mean, what do you think of that as part of the therapeutic process, that you're not a mate, but maybe like an ally? Yeah, an ally. Do you think that's relevant?
Or the ally guide.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to, whatever.
But if you think about your situation, Richard, you were saying back, yesterday when you were a bit all over the place and you could have done with talking to Terry. The phrase you just used, it is quite simple, but so many things are simple, but they're no good if you don't know about them. You don't have access to them.
Yeah.
When you're describing, in any walk of life, in the other work that I do, and you guys as well, if somebody is talking to you and trying to explain the situation, they've got to construct their thoughts and words in a way that they can get it across to you. And then you might say, well, I didn't understand all of that. So, okay, let me say it another way. and they've got to continually be sort of constructing their thoughts in a way, and that in itself is taking the maelstrom of thoughts, which are just all over that. Oh, I can't bloody think straight, and I don't know where to start, and God, this is going to happen tomorrow. It's like, tell me about it. Okay, I'm going to tell you about it, and you've got to clarify your thought process to explain it to another human being.
Yeah.
So that's got to be good even at that point. Just then, then you're on again, you said you're on a 1 hour thing then about taking that further and explaining further. So it's like, I don't know, trying to think of a good metaphor, but all the confusion has got to go away to a greater or lesser degree, just because you're now having to pass that information across to another human being, and you want them to understand it. So you're clarifying thoughts. So that's just another small building block, a small component of what's going on in the program. Yeah. That, so there's tools and techniques to learn, there's audios to watch, there's exercises to do, and then you could do that. Here's a thought. Does this work? You could sort of do the program just by watching it. And there are programs we know about where you watch stuff on a screen. And I'm sure there's lots of good tools and techniques in there. But when you're engaging with another human being for an hour, then that conversation is what I think just takes the whole momentum forward. For many years, I was a bit skeptical about online coaching. And sometimes the technology wasn't great now, but now we've got good technology, we've got a good, robust package that is the backbone, and now the coaching is on top of that. Well, I've gone from cynic to big champion. I think it's fantastic. It really works great because of that combination of things, putting it all together. But the point I'm getting muddled about saying is it's the human element as well. It's talking to another human being, getting feedback, getting empathy, being able to say things out loud that you've carried in your head for ages.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's about even when they're listening to the video or watching the video or whatever it might be, I do the work. We ask them the questions that they wouldn't think to ask themselves.
Right.
That's what the coach's job.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, asking better questions.
Yeah.
To open their framework, to open their map, to help them realise that there are other options, other choices.
Absolutely. That's what you're looking for. But expanding the palette of options. But the other thing in that, Terry, I totally agree with that, mate. And either overtly or covertly training them to ask better questions of themselves. The question of why was I such an idiot that I fell for that narcissist is a question. But it's not a really useful question, because all it does is take you back into all sorts of speculation and things, and how weak
guilt and shame.
Absolutely. Instead of use that time, the time it takes to ask you that question, why was I such an idiot I fell for that narcissist? Use that time to say, how could I have loving, rich relationships going forward?
Yeah.
Use the question. And because I think that's what happens with the clients. Overtly or covertly, you'll teach them how to ask better questions, better meaning more resourceful, more helpful, and all the rest of it. And they get good at it. I've had clients come on to me and say, I caught myself, and I love this. I like the word noticing, or any derivation of that word noticing. And I say, I caught myself asking myself a daft question the other day. So I did that, what you said, I changed it around. Got to notice it first. Notice it, and then, what are you laughing at? Don't you laugh?
No, I'm laughing because I had an email off a client. I had an email off a client yesterday, and she said she was about to go into an old pattern.
Yes.
An old pattern. And I'll use her exact words on the email. I heard Terry's quiet voice in my head. I thought, so I've got a quiet voice, have I?
Yes, Terry.
The key and the important thing is, she changed her mind. She did something different, more resourceful, more useful. And I thought, okay, great.
But
I have that problem. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I hear your voice.
You want my voice in your head at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's what you want.
Is that? Do you think that like the fact that then your voice is carried around with them, and that they are making these? Well, the thing that I was going to sort of dial into with you, Terry, when I was going to ask you the follow-up question before. One of the things I'm noticing with the feedback that I'm getting, and I've not really done a very good job of conveying to people who haven't gone on the course yet, that the feedback we've been getting from people who've done the coaching with you is not just, oh yeah, this was good and really helpful, thanks. It's like, it's extreme, it's emotional. It's like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Terry, somebody described Steve as an angel.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just something just happened there.
and you know, and I'm like, well, what would have to happen for me to feel like I'd spoken to somebody, you know, over 6 1-hour sessions, which, like I say, a 1-hour session is it's a fairly long period of time, but what's a big impact to have in somebody's life? They don't have to send me emails like that. They don't have to send you emails like that. They could just walk away from it and go, oh, well, yeah, okay, I feel better. But it's a strong emotional response. So what I was going to ask you is, and I don't want to get psychobabbly on it, but is there something that you're offering? Could we conjecture that perhaps the coaching process offers something that they haven't had in life? That kindness, that empathy, that guidance to just, you're not doing anything amazing. On one level, from a psychotherapeutic point of view, if I say to a PhD in psychotherapy, we sat down and prioritized the goals for the day, they go, that's a load of shit. But from another point of view, to have somebody empathically say, hey, calm down, just sit down. We're going to figure this out. All right. Let's just write it down. Let's take our time and be patient.
Yeah.
You're sort of saying, I mean, you know, using that expression, which martial artsy type of expression is, we've got their back. That's it. You know, we build that level of rapport and trust and genuine empathy. I'd say, you know, anybody who has struggled and found a way forward and watched your videos and come onto our program, I've got masses of respect for them to, you know, struggle through, find the courage and end up on the program. So it's like, A, masses of respect, and B, now masses of responsibility for me, because it's part of my job as a guide to get them to the last bit of their success and moving forward.
Right.
And so you get a massive game. Do you know what the thing I sometimes, people have finished the online part of the course, the 6 online, and then you've got, you know, we encourage them to, that's not the end of that's not the end of their development. How are they going to keep going? And some of them will buy extra coaching offers and keep going. And some of them, even if they don't, I'll often say, can you do me a favor? Can you, because I never get to hear the end of the story, you know. In 6 months' time, when you've done things that have, can you just drop me an email so I know how it all went? Because I want to know sometimes how, you know, it's, you get so involved in people's change that they're making that it's a bit sad that I'm not going to hear the end of their story.
Yeah.
And I think that helps a little bit to keep them, you know, it's like, oh yeah, of course I will, Steve. And then, you know, they start to drop you emails to say, just give you an update on what's happening.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when I hear the end of the story, especially if somebody's decided they're going to make some massive changes. You know, between ourselves, Richard, we've had people going to go and live in a different part of the world.
Yeah.
Change countries they're going to live in. That's what they're going to do, and they start playing it. I just want to know, how did that all work out?
Yeah. Are you finding that as a sort of a similar sentiment, Terry?
Very much so. I mean, as you know, the 6th session offers a piece of work there about values, you know, and I think that's a very, very, very important exercise, very useful exercise. It actually was. It was actually very important to me personally many years ago. Right? So I do get, sadly, you know, people who get me as a coach, they get my own work as well, right? And that's their homework. You know, yeah. I want to see that work. You know, even though the session's finished, I still want to see that work, and I'll give them feedback on it. You know? And it's interesting. You know, our very first client back in the day. You know, the very first client, you know, I got an email off him a couple of days ago telling me how he's getting on, and I mean, his life is again, got to sanitize it, because if I told you what he's doing with his life, you'd think I might know him, but it's almost as good as yours, Richie's. You globetrot, don't you? The globetrotter, you know. Yeah, it was a lovely email, really nice email to get, and again, it wasn't expecting it. It was lovely. I loved to hear it.
So one of the things that's happened up until this point, and it wasn't really deliberate, it's just the way the year has gone. Like, we started out by doing the 6 sessions for 600 quid, and it was a straightforward course. And then we spoke months ago, or I spoke with Terry and Steve months ago, about making it so that people could jump on for 1 or 2 sessions so they could try it and or you know, see how it goes for them. And I just never got around to doing it, but we're doing it now. We're only doing it for a short period of time. When I have more time, I'll make it an ongoing thing. But if any of you watching are interested in having an hour with Terry or Steve, if you sign up in the link below the YouTube video to the waiting list there, when I open the list again, which will be on Monday, then you're welcome to sign up to get 1 session with them. Ideally, I would be saying, okay, once you've done the 1 session, please carry on and get more sessions. But it means there isn't that sort of financial cutoff point, because some people just can't do 600 quid in 1 month, whereas they could do, you know, 1/6 of that or less than 1/6 of that inside a month, and it wouldn't be a problem. And I do think, I mean, I'm obviously I pursued Terry and Steve for coaching because I knew them. They didn't come to me. I know them as coaches anyway, so I pursued them because I already knew they were good coaches in their own right. And then in the last 7 months, they've worked with me, and they worked hard. And I'm not the easiest person to work for.
Where are we going with this one, Terry?
The less said about that, the less said about that, the better. I'm not the easiest person to work for, but after 7 months, you know, both of them have done over a couple of 100 hours each with just focusing on narcissistic abuse, just focusing on CPTSD, which is the one thing that people can't get from therapists and counselors, because some people don't even acknowledge narcissistic abuse exists, let alone acknowledging CPTSD exists. That's changing, and it will change, but because it's a big, stubborn institution, it's going to take a while. Now, we're not operating here as counselors and psychotherapists. We're operating as coaches, but just from the feedback that I've had from people who they're talking directly to me, they're saying, by the way, they're not CCing Terry and Steve into this. By the way, I did my coaching with Terry, I did my coaching with Steve, and this is what happened. And I think that's a testament to their coaching skill, but also just the fact that the approach that we've adopted to this is not passive therapy, is it? We're actually saying to people, okay, what's the problem? Let's change it, and let's change it now, not in 2 years' time when you've done 40 sessions. Let's get it done within the next hour. And that there's an urgency there, isn't there, which I think makes a bit of a difference.
I think that works very well. That's why the construction, the 6 sessions in 4 weeks is, you know, full on attention to getting, because, you know, we're all the same. I mean, you know, I've got jobs and projects around the place which I've started in a rush of enthusiasm, but there was no deadline, so they're still not done. Yeah. And that's sometimes, well, maybe that's just me, but I think it does help to keep them so tightly focused on, and that's as well as the content and the coaching and all the other things we've talked about. That construction helps us get somewhere with it as well. That's why the 1 hour session you talk about, I think, yeah, I get that, because some people might be financial, it might just be they're not quite sure. It's a bit of a toe in the water. But again, we made some references earlier on in the call, didn't we, about the martial artsy type things. And so when I get people say to me, what is it you do? And we talk about what it is. It's self-defense, it's Krav Maga. And it's, oh, yeah, you know, fancy. And if they want to do it, I just get them to come to the first lesson. And because the first lesson, when they step out of their comfort zone, they join in, they enjoy what they do, they like it. They're like, other people will say, oh, that sounds great. Where do I sign up? And they just want to come. But there's always some people who say, I'm not quite sure. So, well, come along, give you a free trial and see what you think. And getting them, it's that stepping out the comfort zone, like I said, and taking part and engaging. He says, yep, I get it now. I realize this is what will move me forward. So the 1 hour is a great little way in for those people who maybe don't have that full ability to commit.
Yeah.
But I'd be very surprised if most of the people who take up the 1 hour don't stay with us. I would, to be honest. I think they won't. Most people are gonna stick with you. I absolutely guarantee it, because when I was struggling, Jesus Christ, actually I've answered my own question now with that little reframe. When I was struggling post narcissistic abuse and I'd had a chance to get an hour with either of you, knowing now what it is that I know, but that I had no fucking clue about 6 years ago. Yeah, there's no question in my mind whatsoever. It would have saved me probably 3 or 4 years of my life, because I just was running around in a circle going, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me. Terry, you were about to say something there. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, when you said what you just said, it brought to mind something else. You said you wish you'd have known us years ago as we are now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Right. And with a lot of people, and this is such a sort of an eye-opener for a lot of clients. They think about what they did years ago and the decisions that they made years ago. And, I'm so stupid. How come I put up with this? How come I put up with that? How could I let myself do this? But the thinking from this point of view, from the point of view today, where they had more resources, more understanding, insights. Yeah. And once they realize that, it's like giving yourself a hard time over something that you didn't know back then, that you know now. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a bit like me. They've noticed.
The point is, that can be integral in just letting go, starting to let go of that shame and guilt. Yeah? Because if you'd have known that, then you'll have done something about it, right? But the fact is, we can all do that. We can all look at. I know things what I've done when I was 15, 16, decisions I made, and look back now and go, "Oh no, really?" But I was 16, I was 15, I was 14, whatever it was, right? Yeah.
So it's that thing, isn't it? Where everybody
just 1 second. Another point I wanted to make, because I think it's really important. When people, when clients come to us, they feel understood. For the first time they've had advice off people and whatever, but for the first time they may feel understood and supported. But there's another aspect as well, which I've found as well. It's the first time you've been believed.
Yeah.
Because what's gone on in their lives has been so traumatic that even professionals, so-called, no.
Yeah.
In fact, I've even had that. Well, they made me think it was me, and they didn't believe me. And for the first time, someone is willing to believe them. And that is like a millstone off someone's neck.
Yeah. I think that's good. It's a good point. It's like a lot of them have said to me, they've done counselling and they've done therapy, and maybe some got some good out of it and the rest, but they've never found the real intervention. They've never found it, and this is it. And now that we've been looking at this for many months, I don't see anything else that comes good. We've seen online things, both of us have, all three of us have seen other online things. But I don't think anything that takes this approach to it. And picking up on Terry's point, because we're in it and we know about it, then we do believe them. We know what they're telling us, is their truth at that point in time. We do very much believe them. Yeah. We'll go back, something you said before, Terry, as well, brought to mind that little slogan, but it's a good one, I think, is everybody is doing the best they can with what they know at that time. When they know better, they can do better.
It's a main belief of NLP, and that makes the other stuff go around you. And it's true. It's got its basis in humanistic psychology, humanistic counselling.
We're all doing the best we can with what we know at the time. And as you get more knowledge, you do better. And I think that's fundamental of what the program, we give them all sorts of things. The danger is you mention one thing and people focus on that as being the thing. We've talked about giving them a person to talk to. We've talked about giving them clarity. We've talked about all these things. So there's a whole load of them that work, they come together to that. And that's one of the things do you remember, was it one conversation we had where the word hope came in? We give them hope.
Yeah. For the first time,
they get believed, they get hope, they get tools, so it is, you can't pick on one. It's a whole combination, and we fine-tuned it. We talk about it regularly, don't we? And we tweak it and make, giving them that. So it's all, I don't think there was never anything like this in our sphere of experience anyway, and there certainly isn't now, because we've grown it, nurtured it, tweaked it, changed it. So other people will come in with different things, and some of them might be great, but I think right now this is ticking the boxes for a lot of people who are struggling.
I think
it's good to do as well.
It's not just it's hope with backup, hope with hope, not hope on its own. Okay, that's great. Yeah, but hope, and we can help you with it as well. We've got the tools, the techniques to carry you forward, and I think that's a major differentiator with ourselves as well. I think it's solution focused. And not just solution focused in the frame of CBT or whatever it might be, right? But solution focused, going much deeper than the word level, the cognitive level.
Yeah, it is about that. It is about being in a better place than you started. That's a solution, being in a better place. We said this before, Terry, as well, not just reaching healing, but starting to be more of a sovereign individual in the future as well. Yeah.
I like the idea that you don't have to explain yourself and you get believed right from the get-go. Because if I put myself back in the situation that I was in 2010, looking at you as coaches now, yes, my first session with any therapist or counselor would be having to go through the fucking rigmarole of trying to describe narcissistic personality disorder and convince them, which isn't easy, and convince them that it's a real thing. And it just makes you give up. As a client, you're just like, fucking hell, this is horrendous. So we ice skate through that. That's done. That's a given. In fact, we go straight into what kind of cluster B are we talking about? That's one of the, for many people, what we cover in the first 15 minutes, isn't it? What kind of, not is it cluster B or does cluster B even exist? What specific type of person? Because that tells us what kind of trauma you will have experienced, what kind of effects you've got, what kind of strategies would have been used against you, how that will leave you feeling. So yeah, I think sometimes I don't see the wood for the trees because I'm in it. And the other good point that you made was that we're tweaking it all the time. It's not set in stone. We chat, we get together, we talk about clients' experiences, we talk about feedback from the clients, and we move stuff around and go, okay, that doesn't belong there. Then we put it in a different section, really trying to streamline it as best we can, just so that people walk away from it thinking, fucking hell, that was good. Ooh, I feel a lot better now. That's the end goal, really, isn't it? It is
the end goal. Absolutely. And even that diagram, the cluster, sorry, I just said, that diagram that you put into the program with the cluster B personality on it, and that's probably the first time somebody's actually seen something, a representation, and I will often, depends how it's going, but a standard question is, what do you recognize on that diagram? Just cast your eyes around it and see what you and they start to, wow, you know what, I've just realized they did that to me, and they did this, and they engage, and I think it's what we were talking about 5-10 minutes ago. They're already being believed because we're showing them a diagram, but a nicely put together diagram that they can say, I'm not even being challenged here. I'm being asked, what do I recognize? And
Exactly.
I recognize
That this is a reference, folks, for those of you who haven't been on the courses. I made a diagram, it's not pretty, like I'm not an infographics designer, but it's a diagram that's a map of, sorry?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Terry, because I can rely on you to be encouraging, not like that Steve one. He's mean. But straight away.
I made the best version of your diagram. I'll show it to you.
I don't want to see it. It's gonna cause narcissistic injury if I see that. But straight away, we say to you, here's the diagram, here's the map. What do you recognize? Not oh go on, tell me your fucking mad story, you paranoid idiot, about something that doesn't exist. We're going, yeah, it exists. Let's get into exactly what it is, exactly. And then you go through the diagram and you go, well, they did this, they did that. So it's probably we're not qualified to diagnose. And even a psychiatrist who specializes in personality disorders can't diagnose third hand. And really, the personality disorder tests that they have are so easy to trick. They're so easy, like anybody can go online and trick a psychopathy test or a narcissism test. It's blatantly obvious what they're asking you for. So the full diagnosis is always going to be tricky anyway. It's to make you as a client feel understood, feel heard, and so that you have a better understanding. Yes, if somebody's using sexual provocation and flirtation, this would be called histrionic. If they're engaging in a lot of vulnerability and guilt tripping, then we're probably looking at borderline. It's for validation's sake. Speaking of validation, I'm going to consciously and deliberately bring Terry in now. Terry? Hi. Very high. So we need to wrap this up, so we'll do final thoughts. Terry, you go first.
Final thoughts. You put me on a spot here. You don't need final thoughts.
Tell you what, Steve will go first, and you can gather your final thoughts. Or steal his best stuff.
I don't have final thoughts. They're continuous.
They just go on forever. Yes, that's beautiful. Steve, can I get a cogent answer from you that doesn't make me feel like I'm high on LSD?
Yeah, while Steve's giving his final thoughts, I'll go and have a cup of tea.
I'm only going to be a minute. Bloody hell.
Yeah, I think we've been here a while now.
Terry, you have the floor, Terry. My final thought is, I'm handing it over to you, Terence.
Well, my final thought is we've said an awful lot about these 6 sessions, and by now you'll know how useful it is. What I'd like to my final thought is about the individual coaching sessions. And one of the things that I want to make sure people know is that even with the hour, I want them to bring it, and Steve will be the same. They'll get they'll have usable, practical techniques and processes that they can use immediately. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Gone quiet now.
And there you have it.
He's finished.
Mate. There's so many things I could say, but I'm going away in August.
Domo arigato, Terry-san.
I don't have any further final thoughts. I think Terry's encapsulated it so well.
I think he's done a good job there. I know that if anybody signs up for the individual sessions, both Steve and Terry have an ethic and an attitudinal stance, which is the session won't end until you get something that is practical that you can use straight away. Like they are both pit bulls in that sense, therapeutic pit bulls in that sense.
Hey, I like it.
That's how you be branded from now on, the therapeutic pit bulls.
Spiking Butch.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, guys.
Pleasure.
And for enduring that.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure. It's like our weekly get-togethers.
Weekly get-togethers, yeah. But with
we cover lots of ground, and we have a good. I mean, you know what? All the things that have been said, we do treat each other, and we treat our clients as human beings. So if there's humor required, there's humor. If there's a bit of challenging, there's challenging. We treat them all as humans, don't we? Like you can see from here, it's just about being able to speak to people.
Yeah.
Have a laugh along the way. Although we don't swear as much as you do, Richard. We've got to talk to you about that.
Yeah,
that's true.
Disappointed, actually.
Yeah. I'm offended that I said the things that I said, and I want to know who I can write to complain, because I'm offended.
Jordan Peterson on BBC Radio next Thursday morning.
Listen, it's just going to cause chaos if we talk about Jordan Peterson. It'll just be the comment. We'll be right. He's on next Thursday, is he?
Apparently, yes, he is, talking about how we are easily offended.
I'll be talking about how we're all deeply offended. I'll be listening to that. Go on, Terry.
It's all right. I was being jovial, so I won't be listening to that.
Right, gents. Thank you very much to everybody who's watching. Thank you for your time and for your attention, and we will reach out to you again soon. Chaps, stay on, and I will speak to you. I'm switching this off. We are going to be no longer live in 3,